My name is Marion Pomerantz. I'm the manager of literary programs at a nonprofit in New York City called Learning Leaders. And I also have written 3 children's books.
What was your favorite book when you were a child?
My favorite book was If I Ran the Circus by Dr. Seuss. It was the first book in my home that was for children, and it was just so exciting to have it, to hold it, to read it, and I still have it.
What was it that you liked about Dr. Seuss?
What I love about Dr. Seuss is his use of language, the words, the made-up words, the way the words flow together and sound. It just brought me to a different place, and I love that.
Who read to you when you were a child, your mom or dad or both?
My parents didn't speak English when I was growing up. They were English learners as I was growing up, and I kind of helped them with language. And I think I introduced books to the home, really. They became readers down the road.
You have a son, right? Did you read to him?
I have one son, and as a child, books were very important to me, and I think became important to him because of that. We read together every night. We read books like Stella Luna and Corduroy when he was young, and continued to read together, mostly fiction.
How has writing for children changed over time, maybe in the last 50 years?
I think books have changed in that authors are more cognizant of writing about real children and real issues. I grew up with stories like Nancy Drew, who lived in this fictional America where everyone was white and everyone had a mommy and a daddy, and now they write about more honest and true stories of what children's lives are really like.
And that's a good thing?
And that's a great thing.
Do you have any thoughts about getting teenagers to read more?
I do. I think teenagers would read if they were given more control over what they can read, if the choices were their own and they weren't told what they had to read, if they were told they were allowed to put a book down and start something else. And you can read anything. You can read the ads on the subway. You can read a magazine article. You can read the side of a cereal box. I mean, that's all reading.
Are there good authors or books in pop culture now whose material has encouraged teenagers to read?
I think that the series books that are really popular these days that help teenagers want to read, like the Twilight series, the Harry Potter series, kids like to go back. They like to become familiar with a character and the story, and I think those books have been successful because of that.
Going back to kids, what is the key to getting a very young person to start reading?
I think to get a child to start reading, the key is really to starting when they're young. Have books around your home. Have a library card. Share the books that you read with them. Talk about the books at dinner. Know what they're reading and talk about their books. Take a trip to a publishing house and see what goes into making a book. Meet an author if you can do that. Go to a bookstore and hear someone who's written a book talk about a book. I think you have to just get the excitement of books across. If you're excited about books, they'll get excited about books.
What kind of books do you think young people enjoy reading?
The kind of books that children like to read are books maybe with a little subversion in them, books where maybe the adults are a little goofy and the kids solve the problems. Children want to relate. They want to feel they have a little bit of power. I think young children feel that way. Middle schoolers feel that way. And I think if you look carefully at books that kids really like, it's the one where youth dominates and kind of rules the world a little bit.
Do you prefer paper books or ebooks, and why?
So I now prefer to read books on an e-reader, on my Kindle. I have tons of books in my house, and I haven't bought a book in 3 years. I only read on my Kindle and love it because to me, it's more intimate than a book. I've chosen the type of print, and so it's just me and the word. and the fact that I can carry 100 books with me at all times is a thrill.
Do you think e-readers are helpful for kids or teens who want to get into reading?
I think it would be wonderful for every child to have an e-reader. We're a technological society and we're used to pushing buttons and getting things instantly. And I think it might be really helpful for children to have their own e-readers and start their own collection of books that way. And you can see every book you've read and you can go back to it in 2 seconds, so why not?
Do you think social media has decreased or increased people's literacy?
So I think social media has had a positive effect on children. I think they're exposed to many, many more things. They can go online and get information on just about anything. I'm not afraid of the changes that any kind of social media brings to kids. They have to read, they have to write. Maybe they'll read a few less books, but maybe they'll write some amazing things about their adventures online. I think it's great.
Do you think despite all the technology, books will survive?
Yes, I think there's a great future for books. I think they'll be around for a long time. I think we all like to have our moments with a book, so sure.
Do you still read for pleasure? And if so, how much?
I read daily. I read on the subway. I read before I go to sleep. I read to relax. I'm usually reading 3 or 4 books at a time. Whatever pleases me, I go to. I'm always reading.
What was your favorite book when you were a child?
I think my favorite book when I was a child probably is Where the Wild Things Are.
Why did you like it so much?
I think I liked it because of the fantasy aspects, and it was just a creative book, and I think a lot of kids like it for that reason. So.
Did you see the movie?
No, I did not see the movie, unfortunately. I should. So.
Was there a character in a children's book that you identified with?
Well, I used to read a book series called Trixie Belden, and Trixie Belden was a sort of a teenage or young teen mystery person, and she was very curious and very liked to solve mysteries, and I always fashioned that, I would like to do that as well.
What was your favorite book when you were a child?
Probably The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Why did you like it so much?
I remember we had a teacher at school who read it aloud to us when I was probably 6 or 7, when I was too young to read it myself. And I remember getting the book and then sitting down by myself and reading it. And I think it was the first time I realised how much you could get out of a book, I think.
Was there a character in a children's book that you identified with?
I can't think of any specific characters. I think I was quite a scruffy child. I always had dirty knees and torn clothes and things like that. So whenever there was a boy who got into lots of trouble, I usually thought that's a little bit like me. But I can't think of one particular one.
What was your favorite book when you were a child?
I think Coraline by Neil Gaiman was my favorite.
Why did you like it so much?
I liked the writing style. A lot of books just sort of have a wall of text that's hard to absorb, but I thought that was easier to read.
Was there a character in a children's book that you identified with?
I identified with Coraline because I tend to be curious about stuff, and also because in a lot of the sorts of books that I like, unfortunately, the protagonists are usually male.